Welcome to Beyond Belief, the art of strange mentalism. With your host, Tommy Burnett. Today's guest is Terry Tyson. And now your host, Tommy Burnett.
I'm rocking that tune. Okay, anyway, so welcome back to Beyond Belief with Tommy Burnett, with me, the art of strange mentalism. And today we have a fabulous guest, a friend of mine that I've known for a number of years. He's been on previous podcasts with me. He's come to at least one of my workshops, and this guy is amazing. He is definitely an authority of magic, mentalism, bizarre magic, creating and everything inclusive. And I'm so happy that he's here with us. And I know you don't want to hear that much from me, so let me bring him out with us. Please help me welcome Mr. Terry Tyson. Yeah.
How you doing, Tommy? Good to see you, brother.
You too, my brother. Always a pleasure. I'm doing really well. I'm happy to see you, and let's just go into it. For anyone who doesn't know you, can you basically give us a little history of what you do and what you've done? Um,
Sure. Yeah, I
yeah.
can do that. I started doing mentalism full time in the late 70s when I graduated from college. And I did it for about 3 years and I starved.
Mm,
So I decided to get a proper job, but I still kept doing mentalism. And I had the good fortune to live really close to Bascom Jones. And
oh, wow.
Bascom, of course,
Mhm.
published Magic, the bi-monthly newsletter. And he was the first person to publish one of my writings. And that sort of kickstarted it. And from there, I got into meeting some other fellows that taught me a few things. One of my mentors is somebody you never met, you've never heard of. He went by the name of Doc Monty,
Mm,
and he sort of mentored me to learn how to do mentalism. And he was a certifiable con man. He was 3 steps ahead of the sheriff. He would disappear for a while because he probably got busted and served time. Then he came back, but he taught me a lot. And
wow.
then I became a member of the elders group in Los Angeles with E. Raymond Carlisle and
Wow.
Leo Casca and all of those folks associated with the Hollywood and LA magic, actually seance and bizarre magic scene at that time. I got to be good friends with Tony Andruzzi, and in fact, Cardor, Robin DeWitt, for those of you who remember that name, he and I met um, Tony at the Magic Castle about 2 weeks prior to his death.
Oh,
And yeah, so got to be with him. And then I was able to spend some of my last days visiting Robin Cardor before he passed away.
mm,
And so that was my early uh,
mm, wow.
association with them, as well as Tony Raven and all the other luminaries of the early bizarre community. And after a while, I started to get really deep into bizarre and specifically seance work.
Mm,
And I was able to get a hold of, or it was the other way around, Scott Davis, who published Seance Magazine, and along with myself, Larry Keene, Eugene Berger, and others, we wrote for Magic Magazine for the, was it 2 years that it ran, or 3 or 4? It wasn't very long,
yeah.
but it was a seminal work in the field of seance when not a lot of people were doing it, frankly.
Right.
And it sort of started that. And then for a while, Tommy, because I was so busy, and let me be honest with you, because I think this is important, is that for a short time, I walked away from magic, mentalism, and the whole field because
Mm-hmm.
I did not like the person I was becoming. I was pretty full of myself.
Mm.
And because of that attitude, I had to walk away. A relationship was ruined because of it. And
Mm.
I had to reevaluate how I approached magic and mentalism and seance and bazaar. And I had to grow up.
Mm.
I had to become an adult and treat people right and do the right thing and not believe your own publicity.
Yeah.
And I think it became a better person because of it. And now here I am and continue to do seance in bazaar. And I've seen how, and mentalism. I started out doing mentalism, but
Mm.
most people know me from my seance work. And I
Right.
still do mentalism quite a bit. And
Yeah.
I combine it with my public speaking so that when I do say, a keynote address, I will incorporate magic into the message or mentalism into the message when I'm doing keynotes. I was fortunate enough to do one at the November of last year at Disneyland for a trade association, and that was a lot of fun. I did their
Yeah.
keynote, used pendulums to illustrate leadership
Mm-hmm.
qualities and leadership abilities, and then for their final dinner, I did a show for them at the end of the dinner. And but I've seen Bazaar change from early days of this magazine, which was Invocation,
Mm.
and at the time, Bob Lynn, also known as Tony Raven, he and Andruzzi really kicked this stuff off. They really are, I think, the founders of early Bazaar magic. You accompany that with those who are doing it in the UK, Tony Shields, Charles Cameron, and others,
Mm.
and they literally laid the foundation from where we are now. But I've also seen it change when you, frankly, and full disclosure, when I read some of the things in this, they're pretty terrible. They're unworkable. They were pipe dreams, but they're very creative. And I think it was Max Maven who said that the early days of Bazaar magic was not performative, but it was a literary a tradition.
Mm.
So
Mm.
but he also says that's pretty important because people started thinking beyond hippity hop rabbits
Right.
and started looking into what are some of the darker sides. And a lot of the early Bazaar magic was very, very dark and it had to do with demons and evil spirits and that. And I think it has evolved through storytelling and through people realizing that um, if you want to actually appeal to an audience and get booked, everything
Mm.
can't be dark and serious and
Right.
scary all the time. That some lightheartedness and that life is not just the evil side, but if you can bring in a love story, for instance, or
Mm-hmm.
acts of kindness that somebody does for someone else into your story, it's much more approachable and people are more likely to embrace it, even if they don't like the magic, they like the story and they like the message that you're sharing. And that's where I'm at now.
Wow. That makes a lot of sense. Um, I didn't know you knew all those people. And most of it must be an amazing memory to have, to know those people. Um,
Well, Tommy, I was the kid at the time, and now
okay.
I'm an old man. that, that
Well, yeah,
I'm a super old man that's
I
passing
know
this stuff
that
on.
feeling. I know that feeling.
And
um,
I'm mentoring a few young magicians with their
hmm,
routines and their stories and their acts, which is a way to pay it back and paying it forward so they will do
yeah,
the same thing. Um, I will have, I decided last night, I've been writing, every old guy that's been doing this for a while has to write the damn book.
yeah.
And
I
and so
do.
I'm going to do the same thing. And a lot of it is a vanity project to many. But what I'm going to do, Tommy, is when I release it, it's going to be released for free as an ebook. And if you want
Wow.
a hard copy, you will have to pay for that because, for one thing, 2 weeks after you publish a book or sell a book or release a book, it's already
Yep.
on the pirate sites already. So why not undercut that and just say,
Yeah.
if you want it, here it is, download it, read it. But if you want to, real copy with real paper and such, it will cost you a few dollars because
Yeah.
that's not free. So that
That's
I made that decision last night. Yeah.
wow. Great. I can't wait.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I still have that routine that you sent me of the ESP cards, and I admit I did it a couple of times, and I kind of lost track of it, but a brilliant, brilliant routine.
Well, thank
Uh,
you.
and of course, I have limited knowledge of you, but I know you from Alakazam and from doing the terrifying taboo with Jamie
Yeah.
Dobbs,
Yeah.
which again was like invaluable. Um, and there's not enough words to say how important you are in this community. So I'm always very grateful when you say yes to be on the
Well,
show.
well,
Um,
thank you, Tommy. It's very kind, and I appreciate the kind words, and I'm always honored to share time with you and others who actually want to listen to an old man yammer on for a while.
I can appreciate I can I can appreciate that being an old man myself. Uh, um, um, let's talk about how if somebody wanted to get into doing a bizarre act, for example, and they've been doing magic or mentalism, um, how would you how would you recommend them doing that?
Well, there's a couple of ways that come to mind. Number one, when it comes to mentalism specifically, and we'll build off of that, is that when
Mm-hmm.
you're a mentalist, I think it's wise, and I'm not the first person to say this, to select your powers. What powers do you possess?
Mm-hmm.
Are you a telepath, or do you practice psychic readings? Are you in that regard? Are you an empath, or what you do psychokinesis or something of that nature? So you pick your powers, okay? And one of I think the mistakes that early mentalists make is that they can do everything. They
Right.
can bend a spoon, they can read your mind, they can predict the future and the whole gamut, and they can talk to the dead or whatever. So I think you start out just like in mentalism, you narrow your focus about what resonates with you as a performer or as just a reader of books
Mm-hmm.
or movies. What resonates with you? Is it ghost stories? Is it legends of haunted forests? Or is it other kinds of folklore? And
Mm-hmm.
start there. And in a sense, you're picking your bizarre power. Or is it or is it seance? Do you want to communicate with spirits or enable others to do that? And you can do all those things, but I suggest not doing them in the same presentation or the same set. So when you're doing bizarre magic, decide why am I doing this? Just like in a seance, figure out, why am I holding this seance? What's my purpose? Is it to get answers from beyond? Is it just to make contact and see if they're in the room or some other reason? And when I do seance workshops, one of the first questions I have people ask themselves is, why are you doing this? Is it to investigate a haunted house? Is it to solve a mystery of a place? In the same vein, um, you also, for Bizarre, say, what are we going to do? What strikes a chord with me? Currently, I am building I'm making my own legends. I'm creating my own mythos in a couple of areas. One is, now Susan and I moved to Greenville, South Carolina, and we live near the headwaters of the Reedy River.
Hmm.
And the woods around us, just beautiful, and uh, the water rushing. And I also meditate and also sort of try to be mindful of my environment. And it just struck me that if you listen, you can hear things. And it's either wishful thinking or imagination, but I can hear the differences in the forest. So, okay, let's start there. Let's look at the woods. Let's look at the history of an area. South Carolina has the dubious honor of the first state to secede from the Union of the Civil War. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of Civil War history here. There were also some battles that were fought around here, and people from Appalachia and others brought their traditions. This was a mill town. They made fabrics and textiles because of the Reedy River. So you start looking at all these bits of history, and I'm starting to build the story of what I call the Witch of the Reedy River. And I've built a narrative about this person who helped a Union soldier who was later captured and killed by the Confederates. But she had some fondness for him. She took a fancy to him. So I thought, how can that build? And you start building this story. Even if the audience never knows the whole story, I think it's important for a performer to have this backstory. Case in point is the Stanislavski method for method actors is that you create a backstory for your character that you're playing on stage. Even if it's not revealed in the script, you build this whole story about this person's life, so that at the time that you're performing it, you sort of inhabit that character on stage. Similarly, when you're doing magic, I think it's important for the 45 minutes of your set that you truly believe that you have powers, so that when you present that, it resonates more readily with an audience. So many times I have seen mentalists who will do a show, it is fabulous. And either because of magician's guilt or they're uncomfortable uh, fooling the public, that they undercut everything by saying, it's just a trick. And you have just broken the spell. And I think you need to maintain that spell
Yeah.
throughout. So, anyway, so I'm building this story about the Witch of the Reedy River. I'm
Hmm.
also building this fake foundation called the Devlin Foundation. And if anybody knows about the history of my writings, I sometimes would use the nom de plume of Devlin. And it's very pretentious and it's full of myself at the time, but I think it's a cool name. So I'm building the Devlin Foundation. I don't have any of the books with me, but this is going to be a uh, a fraudulent imaginary foundation that has done investigations, that they've been doing this for some time, and they have different departments. And with that in mind, I can start to build again narratives and stories based on that approach, that is investigatory type of storylines. And if you recall, I brought home
Yep.
this bag of soil from the Braun Castle in Transylvania. My wife and I took a long tour of Eastern Europe last year, and one of the stops was Transylvania, and in particular Brasov, the town of Brasov, which we fell in love with. The people were wonderful. Transylvania is amazingly beautiful. They have
Mhm.
the mountains look like the Alps. There's wild rivers running just at the edge of town. It goes on and on. And I wanted to capture that spirit and sort of think about, the legends. And I bought some books on the folklore of Serbia and other things so I can sort of get into this and build something with the weird places in Transylvania that have the strange occurrences or folklore. And one of those places, and I've got this is the vial, is the Hoya Forest, is probably the most haunted place in Transylvania. And if you
Mhm.
look it up, they've had UFO sightings and they've had strange voices, and it goes on and on. And that just captures my imagination. So
Mhm.
I'm building this storyline. It may never be performed. I'm just doing it as an exercise in creativity and then giving all of this material to the community to say, play with this. This is a sandbox in which you can play. And we'll see what happens with it.
Yeah.
And so that's how I do it. I sort of build the foundation, find something, and then present the narrative based on this quasi reality that I've built. That's a
Wow.
long answer, and I've talked.
Hey, you're making my job easy.
Okay.
Nobody wants to hear from me. They want to hear from you. Uh, so do you have any stories about when you knew people like Tony and Susie?
Yeah.
If you share?
Yes. So I guess one of the greatest stories that I can tell right now that comes to the top of my head is an associate when I was living in Southern California about 5 years ago. One of my friends, God, his name escaped me. He'll come back.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I put on a red light seance. And let me look at the poster. God, I'm embarrassed that I forgot his name because I'm
No,
thinking, yeah, hold on. Hold that thought. Hold that thought.
that happens to me all the time. I once forgot my own mother's name. I was at a party and I said, "This is my mother."
So
Uh,
his name was Matt Bruce, and really he's one
okay.
of my good buddies. But it just is because I'm not being mindful at the present time. But Matt and I put on a series of red light seances in Orange County. We sold out the show
Well,
and did it I don't know, 2 or 3 weekends in a row. And normally a red light seance is done with one table, and you have 8 to 10 to 12 people around the table
mm-hmm.
looking at the gazing at the stones, making the bottle pendulums move, etc. We had 4 tables, Tommy.
Wow.
We
Wow.
managed to have 4 tables, and um, people had extraordinary experiences during this thing. And I had actually seen one from the spiritualistic church down in Escondido, which is just north of San Diego in California. I attended a seance there, and they used red light. And it was pretty amazing to watch. And I studied it, talked to friends, read about it, looked at the old stuff from E. Raymond Carlisle, and decided, let's do this. And so anyway, at the end of every session, you have the time when you have a, you know, report, yeah, download from everybody. What did you see? What experiences did you have? And we certainly know some of the things that happened because they, if they saw something, they said something, and some of those things were pretty extraordinary. And at one point, this woman said, I saw a man walk into the room and he was in the corner. He walked to the middle of the room, then left. And so here's the thing, Tommy. I saw it too, and I do not know what that was. I don't know if it was a security guard checking in on what these weirdo hippies were doing in the middle of the community center, or if it was something else. But
Mm-hmm.
that was the strangest thing. It was pretty bizarre, but people have reported other strange things during red light and other seances. And the red light seance is non-gimmicked, it's ungaffed.
Mm-hmm.
It is, I guess the best way to describe it is psychological, but it is a very effective presentation, and people have a really interesting time. And it's not a spooky one.
Yeah.
Sometimes I call it the kumbaya seance, where everybody basically comes together, has this spiritual experience or quasi-spiritual experience, but they do feel connected with one
Mm-hmm.
another because they share this experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I get a great deal of joy out of that. It
Yeah.
was, yeah, and Peter Nardi at Alakazam and Jamie want me to do it for them. And I
Mm-hmm.
told them that I'd be glad to do it, but you really can't capture what happens at the
Right.
table, even with um, night vision goggles, because
Yeah.
it's with the eyes and the mind and all of that. I said, but we'll do it if you want. So we'll see if
Mm-hmm.
that happens. Yep.
Oh, that would be cool.
And then, and
Yeah.
also, Tommy, I'm sure you've experienced this too when doing a mentalism show, that information comes to you regarding somebody that you're working with.
Yeah.
Say during psychometry is one of my favorite things to share with an audience. And I actually have times when audience members do psychometry,
Okay.
and you just pick up information. And whether that's, again, I'm not so I'm not a total skeptic, but I'm not a shut eye in that um, things could come to you. You don't know why. It could be just experience. It could
Mm-hmm.
be just whatever. But when it hits more than you think it should, that
Yeah.
just delights me and surprises me during a mentalism show. So yeah,
I mean,
that's
yeah.
not uncommon.
Yeah. I look at it as trusting my intuition, and if a shot comes to me, I say it, and it's either gonna hit or it won't.
Yep.
But many times it does, and I don't know why. But yeah,
Well, Tommy, you miss every ball that you don't swing at.
absolutely, yeah, you're right, yeah.
Yep.
Um, I mentioned before the show, I'm among other people, I was a student of Kenton Upper,
Yep.
and that's one thing that he taught me was, you know, you gotta go for it,
Trust your instincts.
The instance,
Trust your
yeah.
gut.
Not, oh, not, sorry, my dog is constantly getting in my way here, but I love you.
I love you too. Oh,
Well, I love you too. You said something about the seance, the Butler seance, that is uh, not only key to the seance, but I think it's key to most of the mystery art performance, and that's making a connection with the audience. Um, what do you think
yeah.
about about that?
Well, absolutely. With maturity comes understanding of the human condition and the experiences of life.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're doing Mentalism, for instance, you can key on some common things and common themes in a person's life. Even though we are very different individuals, there are certain things that we all share. We all share the desire to be liked, loved. We like security. We like good times. We want to try to avoid pain and suffering and all of those things. So when you're looking, but we've all experienced those things as
Mm-hmm.
well. So, you can use those themes. When it comes to, say, a bizarre presentation, if you can give a narrative, provide a narrative that strikes certain chords of those same topics of love and of loss and finding love or the promise of love beyond this life and redemption in, you can tell stories of redemption, for instance. Every single one of us have done something that we probably regret and probably we didn't do the right thing at the time. And we seek redemption from the bad stuff that we did sometimes. So if you can tell a story in which your protagonist is redeemed and you can show that through some kind of key turning on the palm, which is an indication, you build up what that means through a
Mm-hmm.
pendulum movement, through writing that appears on a previously blank piece of paper, or a picture changes, or a participant chooses something that indicates that redemption took place. I think you have a very, very powerful and meaningful experience that people can identify with. One of the problems with early, at least from my perspective, from early bizarre magic, is that they were dealing with things that people could not identify with.
Mm-hmm.
Calling upon a demon was, kind of fun, but it doesn't matter.
Right.
Didn't matter. I didn't connect with that. Oh, that was really cool to see. Um, and I dare say that some illusion shows are the same way. They
Yeah.
may just blow your mind. How is that possible? But a year from now, you're not going to really resonate with what you saw. Like, oh, that's really cool. But I have had people do shows that I've attended in which they exhibited some kind of thing that I can connect with in my life.
Yeah.
It really makes a difference. Luke Germain is I'm a big fanboy of Luke, and I got to meet him at the
Yeah.
Vanishing Ink retreat a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And he often has that as a touchstone. What does it mean to my audience? More than just look at my amazing abilities. I'm a superhuman, but how does that connect with a individual in their life? And how do they feel? Things of that nature.
Yeah.
Um,
Does somebody have a TV on in the background?
Peter John.
There we go. I get it. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Kenny. Sorry about that.
so when if you can do a bizarre routine or mentalism routine that involves the human condition, or that the participant is the hero of the set or the routine, you have gone a long way to make something that people will resonate with and care about and enjoy, I think, much more.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, that's my philosophy. I try to make as many of as my routines and my sets where the audience is paramount in how it works. Not just because they're not just a prop;
Right.
they are integral to the um, the reveal, for instance, or whatever it may be. So I think a lot of magicians, bizarre, any kind of magician is, look outward, view your show from the audience, and there's no wrong answer. Is it spectacle? Is it heartwarming or any of these things? But if you have an awareness of this, I think you can then be very honest about how do I want to present my magic? Do I want to
Mhm.
present spectacle? Cool, go for it. Do I want to make something meaningful without being too full of yourself? You know, all those things. Um, so view it from the audience perspective. And for God's sakes, and I mean this with all due respect to every other magician ever, is who gives a shit what a magician thinks?
Right.
They
I,
don't pay your bills.
yep.
They don't, they will might support you by coming to the show, but I don't give a shit what a magician thinks. I
Yeah.
care about what that participant felt at the end of the show, and I talk to them and say, you know, how was that, you know, and whatnot. Um, and you know, we see all the ads. It fools magicians. I usually just flip the page and go to the next ad. You know,
Yeah.
it's a fooler at my Magic Club,
Yeah.
and and that's often the trap that a lot of young magicians go into is how can I fool my peers?
Yeah.
How about fooling your audience first?
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that are going to hire you for the private engagement. They're the ones that are book you for the corporate show and all those things. Um, but if you're just there to fool magicians, well, if that's what you want to do, fine. But it really don't matter at
Yeah.
all, kids. It really doesn't. So anyway, that I'll get off my soapbox now, Tony.
No, I like your soapbox.
Okay.
um, yeah, when during my brief stint working at a magic shop, I always had young kids come in asking me, "Can I show you something? I want to
Mhm.
see if I want to see if it'll fool you." And I'm like, "Well, first of all, don't worry about trying to fool me, because it probably won't. Cause, but even if it does, that's not the point. You know, I mean, yeah, it should be amazing, but people don't like being fooled. People
Yeah,
don't like being lied to. You know,
yeah,
try and make a connection with them, and they're like, yeah, but did it fool you? And I'm like, okay, whatever.
yeah.
um, yeah. So yeah, I agree. Um, what do you think is the most important aspect of, and maybe you've said this already, but what do you think is the most important aspect of a good bizarre act or presentation?
It has to resonate with your audience. A really good one also incorporates those things that are used in movies and in plays. You know, if you had control over everything, such as lighting and sound and set,
Mm-hmm.
um, that elevates it to another level so that it looks professional and that people feel like they got their money's worth because of these things existed. You know, it could be a simple set, but a thoughtful one. For instance, if you're going to have a chair and a table on your stage, think about how does that look from the audience? Is it just a folding chair and a table that looks like something they could eat their dinner off of while watching television? Or could you dress it up a little bit if it's appropriate? Perhaps an older chair, you know, antique chair,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe a table that is draped with a beautiful tablecloth of some sort. So
Mm-hmm.
think about your window dressing and think about the set. What's the the perspective of the audience? Where are their eyes drawn to? Um, where does the lighting go so that so that you stay lit until you don't want to be, or your participants stay lit as much as possible. All of those things help make a difference in your presentation and lends not only professionalism, but lends to the mood that you set. For instance, if you're going to use background music, it doesn't have to be necessarily cued, although that'd be great. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think you want to make it too slick, but just background music helps set the mood.
Mm-hmm.
So, so look at not only your act, or what you're going to say or what's going to happen, but look at your set, look at the lighting, and look at the sound, and um, think about your script. And I am in the school that you memorize your script so that you can go off of it.
Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Because if you have key notes or key phrases that you want to touch on, and sometimes that's very important to drive your narrative. You
Yeah.
you give information to your audience through your narrative or through your
Yeah.
directions. Um, make every, and this is just general magic stuff too. Make
Yeah.
every movement meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to plant your feet in either just off center, left or right, or stage center, and don't pace, don't walk around while you're telling the story. When you move, it's on purpose and it's at a key point in your script,
Mm-hmm.
such as think of it as turning the page in the book or at a paragraph break and when you're reading a story. Um, so that's stagecraft and acting. Take some acting classes, even if it's just acting with your community theater, uh, wherever you live, or your local community college. Take some acting classes. You know how to stand. I have really terrible posture, and so I have to really work and remember to uh, stand or sit upright.
Mm-hmm.
And when I do move, I make it on purpose and uh, do it for a reason as opposed to just because I'm nervous.
Right.
I think I think that's very important. Have a story. I think for me, again, I'm talking through my own perspective, is have a story that people can identify with a little bit
Mm-hmm.
or can imagine when you're doing let's say you're doing a Jack the Ripper story.
Okay.
We can't maybe identify with it, perhaps, but we can make somebody feel the fear that those people felt through your words and through your action.
Mm-hmm.
And so truly at the end of the day, perhaps they don't necessarily remember the reveal or the knife that came out of nowhere, but they do
Right.
remember the story and how you made them feel and they were creeped out. That's totally cool. I
Yeah.
currently do a um, card trick. I don't do too many card tricks. I use them to illustrate something, and I have one that's called um, Order Out of Chaos, and I talk about the different stages of the magician and all this stuff, and it's rather a talky story for a freaking card trick,
Mm-hmm.
but it's nothing more, Tommy, than a cut deeper force. That's
Yes.
that's the that's the secret move, and so that when they pick up a quarter of the deck and turn it over, I make a point of saying, "Oh, that's the three of hearts." That's pretty significant. I would imagine, sir, that you have been in love, deeply in love, three times. And they'll say, and if whatever they say, go, great. If they say no, just twice, well, you have another one coming. So I bring them in
Yeah.
and bring them into the story, and it becomes cartomancy, and they sort of lose track of maybe perhaps why we're doing it just for a while. And I'm using cards to tell the story, to illustrate the role of the magician throughout history and folklore was to create order out of chaos. And at the end, all the cards are facing in the same direction, etc. So, but they're drawn in not only by the story, but also they get a little bit of a reading along the way. And people
Yeah.
have told me, and he said, in fact, the last time I did this for a group, he said, I don't care how you did it. I just really like the story. I said, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Job done. Job done. Show me
Yeah.
the money now. Show you want to go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pay
Yeah.
me, pay me, pay me.
Yeah. I love that example. It's great. All magic needs to be like that.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, is there anything that you like to talk about?
Um,
Or do you have anything prepared to
yeah,
show us?
I will show you a couple of things
Okay.
uh as far as ideas on bottle pendulums that I've been doing
Yeah.
bottle pendulums now for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really set up to demonstrate them, but
Yeah. No,
I'll
yeah.
definitely give you a couple of tips on how to put one together
Nice.
and lessons learned along the way. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, well, let's go there. And then, oh,
Okay.
yeah. The one thing that I really want to stress um, is magicians must respect their audience.
Yes.
Um, my wife and I never had children, but we became the most favorite aunt and uncle or the grand aunt and uncle of all of our family. And for a while, we did live in Southern California, and we lived adjacent to a bike path that we could ride to Dana Point on bicycles. It was
Mm-hmm.
about a 7 mile ride, so it didn't take too long.
Mm-hmm.
And our grandniece, Grace, and her best friend, Corinna, that we adopted her into our family, used to come to California because they were from Ohio, and it's California. We got beaches and we got Hollywood. So we took them to the Magic Castle for the family brunch, and we
Mm-hmm.
watched a magician in the palace, and he brought a young woman onto the stage, and he needed to borrow her finger ring.
Mm-hmm.
So I've told the story many times, and she takes it off. She gives it to him, and he says, "Well, what is this?" She goes, "Well, that's my engagement ring." He goes, "Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, look, a place for a stone and everything." He was making fun of her ring. And true confession, I had had an adult beverage before the show, and Tommy, it pissed me off so bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, in a soft voice, but apparently loud enough for him to hear, I said, F you, but I didn't say F.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Corinna looked at me, and the magician looked at me, and he basically backtracked because here, this person he brought on stage to
Mm-hmm.
help with his silly little magic trick in which the ring's going to end up God knows where or who
Yeah.
cares.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he made fun of that ring. That was her engagement ring, for goodness sake.
Uh,
This is an important time in his life, and he used it for a cheap, stupid joke.
yeah.
And I've seen other magicians do it, and it really upsets me. And here's the other thing, Tommy. I'm old enough that I can be a cantankerous old guy and say something about
Yeah.
it.
Same here. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
They go, "Oh, it's just Terry. He's just an old man." Yeah, but yeah, guilty as charged, Your Honor. Um, so, treat your audience with respect. View your show, like I said before, from their seat and see how it comes off. So,
Yeah.
so anyway, let's talk about bottle pendulums. I
Yeah. Please.
didn't. I did not invent the concept. I do think that I had something to do with the Renaissance of bringing them back into the magic community's eye or mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Because I started working with them, and during the show that I was talking about with Matt, the show was called "The World Is Haunted," in which we're just going to call upon the spirits that may be around us because the world is haunted, and we use bottle pendulums to indicate the presence of spirits because we worked with pendulums prior to that using what I call the CSI method. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
Um, and then we bring them to the seance table. They're assembled by the sitters,
Mm-hmm.
and they begin to move by spirit. No human hand is touching them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been working on those, and it's just, you know, peeling off another layer of the onion to see what makes sense. So originally, I've got one here. So originally, I would create a bottle pendulum, and there's a pendulum inside there, with
Mm-hmm.
the cork with an eyelet right here, and a piece of chain that would be matched with the bottle. And it looks great. The chain looks great, but I learned quickly that when you're going to a new venue, you better have the right cork with the right pendulum for the right bottle
Mm-hmm.
because the bob at the end could be different heights. The bottle could be different heights as well. So I would
Mm-hmm.
have to code it like number one goes with number one, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
In talking to my friend Vince Wilson, he said, I see you use chains for all of your pendulums that you give to the audience. And I said, yep. And he says, may I suggest something? Is that put them on cord instead? Because I guarantee you, Terry, you've had to untangle chains before a
Mm-hmm.
show. And
Yeah.
he said, you're right. So if you use cord, especially for those that are being handled by the audience, they're less likely to become tangled and they're easier to untangle, untie the knot. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to have your own pendulum that you handle with a chain because it's much more attractive with that silver colored chain, that makes total sense because I think it looks very, very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but also to get around having to match up the chains or the whole thing from each individual bottle, he suggested that you have the cord come down the side of the bottle and then you plug it off.
Right.
And let me get that up to the front so that you can adjust it on the fly.
Oh,
And that
okay.
works very, very well.
Yeah.
However, I don't have the right cord that I wanted to show you,
Mm-hmm.
but if you put a screw eye in the end of this and open it up, you can actually loop that cord in that screw eye so that it hangs from the center of the cork. You get a
Nice.
little bit better motion by hanging
Yeah.
the pendulum directly in the middle of the bottle.
Mm.
And so it took several times before I finally come to that. And I haven't finished working on this one, but it's really nice as I can have a box of these on the cord, have a box of corks with the screw eye, and I don't have to worry about matching pendulums to bottles. They'll all work interchangeable.
Right. Wow.
So, and I also suggest that you make your own pendulums as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Put a little bit of yourself into that pendulum, whether it imbues something from yourself to whatever stone or amulet. Um, I believe that it does. And even if I'm just fooling myself, it makes me feel better and it
Yeah.
empowers me to
Mm.
make that thing work better.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that's what I suggest.
Nice.
The other thing dealing with pendulums and the first ever lecture I did on pendulums it was either an invocation or the meeting of the minds with the PEA. And this
Mm-hmm.
was 1981, back in the early days. And pendulums were used a little bit by mentalists, but not a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and I may be off on my history, but at that time I called it IMR, involuntary muscle response, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
And I had a set of lecture notes and gave them out. And my dear departed friend now, I miss him, Larry Keene, actually had a copy of those lecture notes still. And they were typewritten with typos, and it made me feel good. So I've evolved on how I use pendulums as well. Um, when I do teach pendulum workshops for metaphysical shops when upon occasion, because they sell them and they wanted somebody to help people learn how to use them. So I came up with a method and a little guidebook that they get when they take my workshop called the CSI method.
Mm.
C for cognitive, S for subconscious, and I for intuitive. So when you're training somebody to use a pendulum, uh, you have them consciously, they ask aloud
Mm-hmm.
a question that they know the answer to, such as, or I'll ask the question of them. Let's say their name is Barbie, and I will say, Barbie, and she's holding the pendulum. Is your name Barbie? And if it's true, then it will move in a back and forth motion and concentrate on it. Think about your name and think about the fact that your name is indeed Barbie, and eventually it will begin to move, even with the most difficult people. Then I have them ask themselves a question for which they know or think they know the answer, but just think it. Same process. So that's the subconscious step. And then the last step is the intuitive step, in which they ask a question either aloud or to themselves for uh, an answer for which they may not know the answer to yet. And they should be able to get some motion out of it. And that sort of step process is something that we all, if we worked with pendulums, all sort of do, but I just put it with a label on it so they understand, and it teaches people how to use them. And often, one of the things about doing it on stage sometimes is that we get somebody on stage that the damn thing won't move during an earthquake. You know,
Right.
it can be a little tough. So you have to be able to coach them really quick on how to get it to move, and it's a bit of a process. And I've had very good success using that. The first pendulum I ever used, and I still use it to this day, is the pendulum that came with the Kreskin game.
Yeah.
And
I
I'm sure
have
we all
one
have
of
it.
those.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I tell you
Yeah.
what, that pendulum moves so well.
It
It's
does.
so nice and big from the stage. It's actually my favorite. It's a little piece of cheap plastic on a ball chain. And that
Yeah.
sucker works great. And I love it. And the chain goes down into the bob. You can put it in your pocket. It's great. It doesn't look esoteric. It doesn't look mystical. It's just a pendulum. And
Yeah.
I tell you, if you guys, if they run across it, get it. And the
Yeah.
game
You
is
can get them
wonderful.
on eBay. I got mine on
Yeah.
eBay.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're not that difficult to find. And it makes a
Yeah.
nice box to put up on your shelf in your studio or your magic room. So,
Mm-hmm.
what else do I want to share? Oh, when I'm doing readings, the role that I take, either consciously or subconsciously, is that of a trusted friend. Or if they're much younger, a trusted uncle. I'm Uncle Terry to a lot of kids. And so I go in with that as opposed to the mystic. I go in as somebody they can trust, and that I'm somebody that they would like, and then do the reading, keeping them in mind, and without going into the whole dialogue of how to do readings. But that's the role that I take subconsciously when I do readings, is either a trusted friend or a trusted relative of that individual I'm reading for.
Yeah.
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 Oh, and mentalist, as much as possible, especially on close up, throw in as much little bits of a reading as much as possible, because you are talking to an individual. And if you can reveal something or make them feel better about something that they are uh, thinking about, man,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
win them over. And there's, of course, there's different kinds of readings. There's a character reading, there's the past, present, future reading, or what I like is an amalgam of that. In that, for instance, Tommy, when I shared that ESP card routine, that in a sense is a character reading
Yes.
using symbols in an ESP deck. But if you can
Mhm.
throw in a little bit of the future, like you're trying to strive towards this goal, then and I think you're going to reach it. I really feel that you're going to reach it. Just keep trying and stay on the path that you want. So anyway, I love doing character readings because people like to hear about themselves. And again,
Yeah.
if I can throw
Yeah.
in a little bit of future advice, job done.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I think it's a great place to end for now. Maybe we can bring you back at a later date. I always love having you here with me because I always feel like I pick up energy from you. Um, and maybe I'm making that up, but I always feel more energized after talking with you. So it's always a pleasure to have you. So hopefully it won't be as long as from the last time because it's probably been
Yeah.
about 3 years. So, but
Yeah, it has been. So
yeah,
Susan and I are leaving in 2 weeks for Southeast Asia. We're going to
oh,
be visiting Cambodia, Vietnam, Hong Kong, and Thailand. And one of the things that predicated the desire to see Cambodia is that if anybody has ever been on the Jungle Cruise ride as a kid, during one of the little turns in the river, there's a giant stone face with a root coming across the face. And your trustworthy river guide says that's from the jungles of Cambodia. And I was
wow,
7 years old. I thought, oh, I want to know where that's at. And then when I got to be 12, I found out exactly what it was at Angkor Wat. And so one of the first things we're going to see is Angkor Wat, the temple at Angkor Wat. And I'm very excited. And then we get back, we have about a month. Then we're going to Greece for a couple of weeks for the Vanishing Ink retreat in Greece. And then when
yeah,
we get back in the fall, we're going to do a big tour of the UK, ending up in London. And from London, we're going to Sheffield, and we'll be meeting up with Luch, the
yeah,
mentalist who
yeah,
has
yeah,
the yeah, the Mind Rocks, his learning platform for
yeah.
mentalism, which I
Trying
think
to
is
get
the
him on the show. I'm
yeah,
trying to get him on the show. Yeah,
yeah, because I'll say a commercial for him. It's the best value in mentalism ever. It's an
yeah,
amazing thing that he has built. And then when we
yeah.
get there, we're going to have a gathering. We're going to Sheffield and gathering Luch and a bunch of us other weirdos together to talk mentalism and have a pint. So we're
Nice.
looking forward to
Yeah,
that. So
yeah.
we'll be gone for almost a month for that one. So
Wow, wow.
yeah, that's gonna be fun. Yeah. So,
Very cool.
well, anything else, my friend? I think I've talked my ear off and I've just been nonstop. I'm
Uh,
so sorry.
no, I mean I can listen to you for hours. So, um, do you have any closing thoughts? Do you have anything you want to leave with us?
Um, don't be afraid of the magic. Don't be afraid of people believing in your magic. If they approach you, this is especially for a mentalist, no matter what you say or do, you're not going to change their mind, whether it was real or whether it was all stagecraft. I let them decide. I don't use a disclaimer. And the answer that I always give, they say, well, was that real? Or, was that all a trick? And number one, it wasn't all a trick. But I say, well, what did you think? Well, I think there were times when it was real and other times you were fooling us. And I said, you know what? No matter what I say or do, it's not going to change your mind. Did you have fun? That's the main
Mm,
thing. And leave
yeah,
it at that. And I have no problem with ethics in that regard. And some
Yeah,
people get very upset with me saying, no, you got to disclaim everything. And I say, well,
yeah,
then
there you go. Well,
feel free to do that.
yeah,
But that's just Uncle Terry talking.
yeah. No, I agree. I feel the same way. Um,
Good.
yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for being here. Um, don't go anywhere. I'm gonna put you backstage until the closing. And if you feel like it, you don't have to. We tend to hang out a little bit after the show. You're more than welcome to hang out with us. But if you have to go, that's okay too. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Terry Tyson, thank you. Uh,
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah, please, thank you. All right, and yeah. So, what is this? So I'm literally tingling. I'm literally tingling. Um, in a good
You're an
way.
easy man to please, apparently. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's what my ex used to say. uh, um, but no, if you haven't yet, definitely go out and try and find uh, Terry's stuff. He's a wealth of information and a really, really nice guy. I think the second part is a really important thing in his business because when I first started out, everybody was nice to me, and I feel like that has changed throughout the years. And maybe it's because I'm an asshole. I don't know, but I don't. I don't think so. uh, but I do have a close network of friends, and um, that is probably more important than everybody liking me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, having said that, next week's guest is a dear friend um, who I met in person for the first time about 3 years ago at not Blackpool, at the Doomsday Convention. Um, and she's a marvelous woman, and we're gonna talk about probably talk about fake matches versus real matches, probably something along that lines. Her name was Eva Mae Nicot, and I was friends with her husband before I knew her, and unfortunately he passed
Hmm.
not too long ago. And but still friends for her, and I'm very grateful that she'll be here. She's gonna have a lot to talk about. She was on a 4 week cruise recently that I'm dying to hear about. So we'll probably talk about that as well. But it will definitely be an episode you don't want to miss. Having said
Well,
all
Tommy,
that,
is there
what?
Tommy? Does anybody here that's currently on the call have any questions while I'm here?
Oh, that's a good point. Does anybody here in the audience want to ask Terry anything?
Did you ever hear about using spiritual animals to pick the pendulum? I was at one. They
Not
use spiritual animals. You reached in the bag and you picked out like a, I don't know, a tiger or whatever the spiritual animal was, and this is your pendulum.
Yeah, I haven't done that, but it's interesting, Bill, in that you mentioned that. I I'm an avid hiker. Once again, I went through some knee challenges, got that fixed, and just finished up some cancer treatment. So I've started my hiking again. But on the way back, Bill, from Zion National Park, which is like, I want my ashes spread there. Lots of hiking there. And my wife and I were coming back. We stopped in one of those little gift shop where they sell gems and whatnot. And there was a bin with little animals, little carved animals, probably carved by slave labor in Sri Lanka for God knows, I
Mm.
don't know. But anyway, and I'm being facetious. They were actually made in Mexico. But I picked up a dozen, and I'm creating a spirit animal oracle. Use those little stones
Mm.
and making a circle with. I'm drawing a big circle so that all these animals could be surrounding them, and each animal has a particular characteristic. The
Mhm.
sitter is invited to choose one that they either identify with, they really, really like. Let's say that it is a lion, and I have a stick that is just the radius, like a little wooden stick, connects the center to the animal, and then we look at the animal that they're either afraid of or they're not attracted to, and they pick that one. And from that radius, we put another stick. So it's almost like a clock face at that point, okay?
Mm. Mm.
And then we bisect that angle to go down to another animal. You now have the foundation for a uh, a character reading or a past, present, future reading using spirit animals. Now, in discussing this with a few people, they say, well, you're appropriating Native American culture by using spirit animals. And I said, no, that's not true. There are spirit animals in every culture that people have identified with. So to say that you're appropriating it from them, I think is short-sighted and frankly ignorant. Um, but I like the idea, Bill, of the spirit animals in the natural world to do things with, to identify with. And frankly, I think it's very healthy that if we can identify with the natural world to ourselves, I think we go a strong distance. I'm getting into my philosophical, metaphysical side here of appreciating nature a little bit. So, but that's really a cool idea, Bill, of using the spirit animal as a pendulum bob. Hadn't thought of that. It's totally a great idea. So do it, man.
Yeah.
Thank you, Terry.
Anybody else?
Well, I would like to say something. I don't necessarily have a question, but I certainly enjoyed your discussion. A lot of what you said resonated in the sense of like the way that you treat an audience member or treat a participant or a helper, and with respect. I have seen famous, at least within our circles, famous mentalists, take somebody's ring and say, TIN when they're reading the inscription, and it's like, really? And so it's encouraging to hear words like that. And when I heard that you were going to be on, I thought, I know that he's in magic. So I pulled out my magic and I'm like going through it. Yep, there he is. So
Yeah.
anyway,
And,
it's been a delight to hear from you today.
and John, the other name that I've written in that is Devlin. So I've got two different names that I go by in that old thing.
Right,
Again, the Devlin name was sort of pretentious. It was my quote, witch name or whatever. I don't know. But
right.
you'll see Devlin and Tyson
Well,
both.
I'll be looking him up, but I saw one just the other day. I thought I gotta see if I'm right, and I'm right. So that's cool. It's very nice
Yeah.
to hear from you.
Thank you, John. Good to see you. Uh, Anybody else?
Well, guys, thank you for the time. I hope I made it valuable, or at least kept you awake. Oh, sorry, Ian.
Ah!
That, God. I love you, brother. I love you, brother. I have that effect all the time. I have that effect all the time.
Yeah,
So, and
yeah,
I'm sure it's late
me
where
too.
you're at. Hi, Jeff.
Thanks again, Terry.
Yeah, you guys take care and be kind to yourself and be kind to others. Okay?
Likewise.
Bye-bye.
All right, so once again, it was Terry Tyson, and as I try and always say, until next week, keep it strange. Keep it strange. Bye.
You've been watching Beyond Belief with your host, Tommy Burnett. Thank you to
Terry Tyson.
See you next time.
Next week's guest is Eva Mae Nicott. Saturday, March 28th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.